fans. This is the Pick Six podcast. It's a two-man weave today. Sam McEwen is out on some well-deserved vacation for a few days. So it's, as Sam would say, the heavy hitter, Tom Shatel, and me, Evan Bland, hanging out. This is it's sort of a kind of an in-between time in the sports calendar, Tom. I mean, this is about as quiet as football gets all year. You're still a month away from spring ball. It's a dead period for recruiting. We're not quite to the money stretch here for college basketball. It's early in the baseball season, so like it's kind of an interesting spot that we're in. We'll touch on all of those different things here today, but Tom, you're still kind of basking in the glow of some basketball greatness from last night, yeah?
Yeah, what a short night. What a great night. It was not quiet at the CHI Health Center last night, Evan. It was, you know, there was a lot of buzz coming in into that Creighton UConn game, and UConn was number one, and Creighton had never beaten the number one, and it was a great atmosphere from a half hour before the game started to the very end when everybody stormed the court. Um, Too many loud noises to count. Too many incredible 3-pointers and just great defensive plays. And um, there's just something about a great college basketball game. You just can't match it. Nebraska's had a couple of those this year as well. So um, you know, I've seen four court stormings. I stand by. I don't think they should have stormed the court when they beat Wisconsin. You don't storm the court when they beat Wisconsin, but I think Nebraska Purdue, Nebraska women Iowa, and last night were three special games. You're lucky in a lifetime if you get one of those, and we had three this year. So it's been a great winter. Things are just heating up. Nebraska has to win the night at Indiana. Um, do they have to win? They have another couple more chances, but I think that the mentality has to be they have to win the night, and I get it over with once and for all. But yeah, it's I, I enjoyed all your baseball stuff last week. Kind of got me fired up. I think it's good to start out of the gate with those kind of opponents. Gets everybody's juices flowing. I felt good about Nebraska baseball, even though they lost a couple of heartbreaks, but I felt good about them.
Hmm. Yeah, and we'll hit baseball a little bit here at the end. I agree. I thought though they went 1-2, there were a lot of really positive signs that we can get into. We'll get a little bit more into basketball too. Well, I think off the top, Tom, I mean, you got a chance to sit down with Matt Rhule last week. Had some really good columns out of that. A lot of interesting perspective from him. And I'm always fascinated in this time of year because externally, like I said, it's as quiet as it gets. Like players aren't doing interviews. We hear a little bit from Rule. It's a
Yeah.
quiet time for recruiting. So, like, what was your sense of, I don't know, the urgency level with what's going on internally? And is it any different than other years? Or just kind of what did you make of your time with Matt Rule?
Yeah, it was I try to do that every off season, and I've been doing that for a long time. Been talking to a lot of coaches. It's hard to really gauge. The funny thing about Rule is he spoke for signing date in late December. He spoke a couple weeks ago on the last signing day. I don't feel like there was a lot to ask him, but I came loaded with with a lot of questions. Sort of a lot of big picture stuff. This is a good time of year to get coaches about the stuff like the playoff and um, overall team urgency and just how do you feel about this NIL and this portal and I remember years ago, probably like in the 70s or 80s, the NCAA used to host a thing in Kansas City called the college football preview, and it was always after signing day, and it was always on February, and they invited one coach from every conference, and they flew them into Kansas City, and they flew in certain media people from around the country, and you sit around a hotel in downtown Kansas City, and you basically just kind of interview these coaches for a couple of days. You have dinner with them and drinks. It's a totally different era. But I
Hmm.
remember going to a couple of those, and we used to talk to these guys about all the stuff that was happening in the sport. So I feel like this time of year is kind of when you do that. Um, and Rhule has been out there so much I didn't really know what to ask, but I did all that, and then I started sitting in his office, and I'm get there, and his the Keith Mans takes me down to the football office. We walk in, and there's these two two girls that are just so much fun, and so they're just running around crazy selling Girl Scout cookies. I'm just loving the whole thing,
Hmm.
and the whole vibe in that football office is kind of like family. It's just like a house, you know. Everybody's kind of everybody knows everybody, and but they're the staff is obviously well connected. But if I go into his office and I got all my questions, and I start looking around his office because I love coaches' offices. I've always felt like you can learn a lot about a coach by what he does in his office, and
Mhm.
um, except for one time, goes back a ways. Roy Williams, his first year at KU, he replaced Larry Brown, KU basketball coach. I went in to interview him, and he didn't have any. This is a guy who knows Michael Jordan and plays golf and does all this stuff. Dean Smith. He didn't have any photos from North Carolina or his family or anything in there. It was just all KU basketball history. And I asked Roy, I said, well, where's your photos of you and Michael and all this stuff? And he goes, this is not my office. This is the office of the KU basketball coach. So it will be treated as such. And I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
I told Rule that story. He kind of enjoyed that. But Rule's got all. It's like a football coach's clubhouse, but it's like a man cave for a football coach. He's got odds and ends and helmets and footballs and posters and he's got a bowling ball. He's got like a six pack of Husker Coke, and he's got all this stuff. It kind of remind me of me. I mean, if you look around my office here, I've got all kind of junk, and I just keep it, and it's just stuff I like. I don't need it. It's just stuff I like to have, and then that's kind of what he did, and I really appreciated that. So in midstream, I said, you know what? I'm going to write about The Office. I don't know how that came to me. I just decided, you know what? I'll ask him about NIL and portal. I think people are kind of tired of that stuff. I'll ask about it anyway and playoff. I thought that his take on the scheduling I thought was pretty interesting. But we started talking about the office and all this stuff. And I said, "What's that? What's that?" I started pointing at it. He started telling stories, and then I said, "All right." Scott Frost yelled at us for asking about his family or something. And we never asked Bo Pelini about anything. No, we've never talked. Mike Riley would occasionally talk about maybe his wife or something, but we've never really talked. Like I didn't know Bill Callahan. I knew he was married, but I didn't know what kind of family he had. We never talked about that stuff. But Matt Rhule talks about it all the time. So I feel like I had an open door to just okay. Hey man, how, how's your family doing? Threw it out there. He went crazy. It was great. He started talking about everything, where they live, what they do, where he hangs out, concerts, restaurants, bars. The fact that he goes to Buck's Bar and Grill. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure people out there in podcast land know where Buck's Bar. Have you ever been there, Evan?
I'd like to go now, but
You
no, I
got to
have.
go. You got to go to Buck's Bar and Grill. Originally, I thought it was in Utan. It's at a little, I guess, a village called Venice. It's off of If you take Center Street out of Omaha and you go toward Oahu, it's right on the way to Oahu.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's 92, Highway 92, but it's a honky tonk with great food,
Hmm.
and they have live music all the time. They have a karaoke. Now I've been there a few times. Um, it's not that far away from where I live, but anyway, this is the most Nebraska thing you've ever seen in your life, and it's you walk in, it's got Jack Daniels signs everywhere and country music stuff, and the head coach of Nebraska likes to hang out there. There's nothing more Nebraskan than that. I mean, this guy from New York City, Penn State, he's a Nebraska guy. It's great. So um, I really appreciated that. I think it was. I got more comments on that stuff than I have on anything in a long time. Um, Even at the Creighton game last night, people in blue asking me, "Hey, we really like that Rhule stuff. That was really good." So it was fun to do, and I really appreciate him doing it.
It got me thinking, Tom, a little bit about just kind of how you laid out the Nebraska coaches just now, too, where you go back to Bob Devaney and how he would hold court in a bar and was a man of the people. Tom Osborne was a little bit more cerebral, but then you get into kind of this century, and like you said, Bill Callahan was reticent to enter the public eye outside of being a football coach. Bo Pelini, people would see him jogging out and about, but you didn't want to disturb Bo, like he was doing his thing. And then Mike Riley, a little bit more open, but it was pretty clear he was a West Coast guy. I mean, he still had his Oregon license plates, in the parking lot there in West Stadium, and then Scott. I'll never forget his after his introductory press conference, he does a side session with a group of reporters and says, "If you guys talk to my family, my parents," he said, "I'm going to lose it on all you guys, and I'm going to restrict access if you do that." Like that was the tone that was set from day one, and now you contrast all that with Matt Rhule and saying, "Yeah, if I'm out and about, like come talk to me." Like it's a totally different mindset. It's who knows how much that translates to wins and losses and things of that nature, but like I just keep thinking of how much we talk about Nebraska football as a fishbowl, right? That's been the old familiar analogy. Well, if that's the case, then it seems like Matt Rhule has some gills. He's not
Yes,
ready to get out of that. He's got the gills.
and I think I can't tell you how many coaches um, were not used to it and did not like it and really shied away from it and maybe withdrew a little bit. Um, and Scott was one of them, and it's a Nebraska thing to jump into the community and be part of it, and this whole state is like one big small town in a lot of ways. That means there's rumors and gossip, but it also means there's people who want to help and who want to be your friend, and of course everybody wants to be the coach's friend, but it's a situation where um, you can either embrace it or you can fight it, and I love the fact that he's embracing it and he wants more, and I really think that will serve him well. He'll be thinking less about that, and he'll be. I asked him. I said, when you talk to all these people, whether it's at the Hamilton show or wherever you're at, Buck's Bar and Grill, do they ever ask you for advice? He goes, "Oh, sure. They tell me or give you advice." And he goes, "Yeah, they always give me advice, ask me why do I do this and that." And he just accepts it. It's part of the job. And I really think that isn't the case every place, but um, I remember reading something about Nick Saban did his weekly radio show at some Applebee's a bar and grill every week, and he would yuck it up with the Bama fans, and I mean that was his time to do that. He didn't do it all the time, but he's once a week he'd show up and he'd shake the hands and talk to the people, and he'd get on his radio show and tell jokes, and that's I think it's not only good for the fans, it's good for the coach it's a release. It's like you can be yourself. You let down your guard a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I'm not sure Matt Rhule has a guard. He's just Matt Rhule, and and that's great. I really think it'll serve him well. He won't be distracted by things that aren't really distractions. And so but yeah, everybody's different. Frost is from here, and he didn't. He he's kind of fighting that all the way to the end. So um, I think it'll just be one less opponent, right? One less hurdle that the Met Rule has to worry about.
Hmm. But a lot of the things, that you asked him, um, were were interesting, right? About he said it before about NIL and the transfer portal and how he wants more structure, but likes what it is. I thought the thing maybe that was the most interesting was his stance on non-conference scheduling moving forward, and
Mhm.
this idea that he's against playing power conference teams in an era when it's a nine-team Big Ten schedule, and you've got the West Coast teams that are in there in the mix. And so, as you said, probably you're playing Colorado this fall, probably Cincinnati in 25, but maybe not Tennessee beyond that, maybe not Arizona or Oklahoma. I didn't view that as a controversial take. Like, I thought that made a lot of sense. If you're going to play that difficult of a schedule, uh, why add a tougher one on the front end when the selection committee, college football playoff, doesn't seem to value strength of schedule all that much?
Right.
Did you feel like that was a pretty obvious take? Or, because I've heard some people maybe express disappointment in this idea that, oh, some of these marquee non-conference games are going away.
Yeah, I thought there would be some people against it. Some people are really against it, but I kind of get it. People are used to those. They love those non-conference games. Um, Unfortunately, the conferences are kind of going away. They're everybody's it's everybody's joining the same conference basically, same two conferences, and you know those were always a good appetizer before the league. But now I think Nebraska fans haven't been in the mix, they haven't been to a bowl, they haven't had anything at stake. They haven't been, right on the edge of the playoff. Um, they haven't been rejected by the playoff. And I think if they ever get to the point where they think they should be in and they don't make it because they got an extra loss, they're going to be against those non-conference games in a hurry. And again, that's how SEC teams think. That's why they're always in the mix. They don't overdo the non-conference at all. They go the other way, and people make fun of it. But guess who's always in the playoff? Guess who's always got all the best bowl games? They play the system the way it's set up, and so yeah, Matt Rhule is not a guy who wants to shy away from. He likes to play all those games. He wants to go everywhere and do all that stuff. But you got to be smart. You got to know, and like he said, the people who will adjust to the system first are going to be the best ones at it. And you got to play the game right away, the way the rules are. And yeah, I think obviously some people and they want those Tennessee games played. You better play them. And but the thing and again we haven't Nebraska hasn't been in the mix. I think once they get it, if they get in that position where they're going to be in the playoff and they you know or they have a chance to be in there, I think people are going to they're not going to care about non-conference games, and they don't understand how hard the Big Ten is going to be now. But you also got to understand the other side of those games. Um, Tennessee might say, "We're out of here. We're not doing this. Are you
Mm.
crazy? We're not going to play Nebraska on top of all Oklahoma and Texas now, and Bama and LSU. We're not doing that. See you later." And so they may cancel the thing. I mean, they're not in a hurry to play Lincoln. Um, I love the Tennessee game though. I wish Nebraska could play LSU. I'd love to go to Baton Rouge. I just think that those days are over, unless Nebraska's going to join the SEC. But um, it's the same with like Oklahoma down the road. They may say we don't need to play Nebraska. It's not 1971.
Hmm.
We've got enough on our plate. So I think these games are all going to go away as we figure out how to get in the playoff, what it takes. Um, maybe the answer is a Big Ten SEC challenge where you have matchups. And that's when the rule said, hey, if everybody's doing one, okay, I'll do one, but everybody's got to do it, not just me. So maybe if there was some kind of Big Ten SEC challenge where there was non-conference game, or maybe it's the opener, maybe it's the season opener. A lot of coaches probably wouldn't like that, having to open up against somebody like that. But maybe maybe that's how you do it. But I guarantee the Big Ten SEC are going to be aligned a lot. That they're coming together now in this joint committee on college athletics. They're going to be thinking a lot alike. They're going to be doing things together. I think, and that maybe that'll be one of them. But it also, I think they're both eventually going to play nine. Each going to have nine conference games. But I bet a lot of these schools are going to think alike. That we're not going to do that.
No, I agree. I think that's the first step is like those leagues need to have the same number of conference games. Like how do you have one league that gets an extra non-con against whomever, some regional FBS team or even an FCS team, and then you see that the committee values not losing more than a quality win. Like
Mhm.
that's an inherent discrepancy that needs to go away. But then, Michigan just proved like they showed the model. Schedule easy, ease into that thing, stay at home, so that by the time you go on the road in early October, like you know what your team is, survive a couple games if you need to, and then
Yeah.
get into the money portion of the season. Like I think that model in this era is pretty clear. And if that can get you in the top four, that can sure as heck get you in the top 12 uh, moving forward. So
I mean, I got to tell you, until further notice, which might take several years, um, USC and UCLA are like non-conference games for me. And Washington and Oregon, that's not a conference game. That's Pac-12 versus the Big Eight. I mean, those are non-conference games that were hell, to me in some ways, Nebraska, Iowa is still a non-conference game, or Ohio State, those are still non-conference games. So um, yeah, I'm not worried about it as much. You know, Nebraska's going to want to have as many home games and as possible. And it's the old days of well, you don't play anybody. Well, nobody's going to say that because people want to get in the playoff, and anybody that criticizes another fan base because you don't play anybody, they they don't care about getting in the playoffs. So I think what this is going to do is it's going to hurt the Big 12 and the ACC, and it's going to limit their access to the playoff because they're not going to have the schedule. Um, they're not going to have the strength. So, and if people in the SEC and Big Ten aren't playing them, that's going to hurt them. So, um, but if you're the excuse me, if you're the Big Ten, why would you do it? Or if you're Nebraska, you don't need to.
right. Yeah. We'll see how that one
Yeah,
shakes out. Let's talk a little basketball too, Tom. I mean, it's an interesting one again tonight for Nebraska. I feel like it's been sort of the same storyline for about a month now about hey, can Nebraska win on the road in the Big Ten? And there's not a lot of that going on in the league. They've
yeah.
got Indiana tonight. It's an interesting kind of juncture for Nebraska right now. Just the second game in 11 days. They've had a couple blowout wins at home after those pair of losses at Illinois and at Northwestern. Like, is it just as simple as like finding a way to win on the road and you feel good about the postseason, or what more uh, do you make of this Nebraska team, which by most accounts right now is a 10 or 11 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, they keep rolling along, beating Michigan and Penn State, bottom of the league, and they keep moving up in the bracketology things. The NCAA bubble is weak. It's very soft. Nobody's really any good. I mean, they're that good. Nobody's making a move. You've got Butler, as well, was above Nebraska. They've lost two. They're barely hanging on. There's nobody in these leagues that the Big East or Big 12 or ACC, that's really making a move on anybody. So Nebraska's in really good shape because they could. I think I wouldn't want to go through the season without a road win and try to get in the tournament though. I wouldn't test it.
Yeah.
So I think tonight's big because like Ohio State is kind of a weird team right now without a coach.
Beat Purdue.
Just people are doing home, so you don't know what you're going to get there. Indiana is really down in the dumps. They had a poor effort on Sunday. Northwestern went in there and they kind of punked them. And Mike Woodson, the coach, was critical of one of their best players on his radio show. He said he played awful, and um, college basketball coaches are great. You got Rick Pitino ripping his guys, and Woodson calling out his player. You don't usually get that in football. But basketball coaches are wired differently. I love it, so Indiana is kind of a mess. They're used to going to the tournament. That's what they're all about, and now they're not. And this time of year is really tough if you're not doing what you wanted to do, and it's just kind of a slow march to the end. So Nebraska needs to seize this opportunity. It's a tough place to win, but it's not as tough when the fans are kind of yelling at their own team, not necessarily you. So um, I think Nebraska's played well on the road. They really have. They played well at Minnesota. They came out smoking hot, and they just couldn't hold on. They went the other way fast. They played well at Rutgers, and Jamal Gary got hurt, and then things fell apart. They had 2 12-point leads at Rutgers. I mean, that's pretty hard to lose that game. They did. They played well at Illinois. They played
Yeah.
really. I think if they come out with one of those games, um, they might knock out Indy. They got to knock out Indiana. You got to knock them out at some point, whether it's early in the second half or maybe late in the second half. But you got to just finally rise up. You got the team to do it. Just go knock them out, and then go celebrate because you're going to be in the tournament. So, yeah, I'd rather do it tonight than wait a week. Um, but if they can knock this one out tonight and then come back and beat Minnesota Sunday night, start playing a selection Sunday. So, I think they might be there anyway. But again, I wouldn't want to test it. You better get a cut. You better get a road win.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to break through tonight. I just get that sense from the attitudes that they've had, the way they've
Mm-hmm.
taken care of business the last couple games. Like, yeah, the first half against Penn State at home was as ugly as it gets, but ultimately they didn't shoot the ball well and they still won comfortably, like
Right.
almost 20 points or whatever it was. And like Nebraska doesn't do that historically. Like they don't take care of business against bad teams. They haven't done that. So like that to me still resonates. Like if you can still dispose of a Big Ten team at home and it's not close in the last 5 minutes of the game, like you're
Mm-hmm.
doing something right. And like just the fact that their road games, you're looking at Ohio State, at Michigan after tonight, and those are deemed winnable games. Like that's a testament to what Nebraska's done this year. They're an older team. I think they've figured out kind of who they are and who they're not. The defense has come on, and I think in the regular season, especially, there's more value in a team like Nebraska that you don't necessarily know who the guy is going to be on a given night. Is it going to be Rick Mast who goes off? Is it going to be Casey? Is it going to be Juwan Gary? Whomever. Like I think in the tournament, you want that guy, that alpha, who can take over and come through in the clutch spots. I feel like in the regular season, though, this is their makeup of their team is ideal. And to your point, Tom, like they came close to breaking through on the road many times. Indiana's, coasting, it looks like, to the finish. And so I think they're just ready to get this narrative off their back. Like people have been asking them about
Yeah.
it for weeks and weeks. I think they know that they're better than what they've shown. And it just feels like tonight's maybe that night they break through.
Yeah, this is a team that I think could really do well in the tournament if they get there and possibly get that long lost W. But because they have a lot of different, they can go big, small, and now you've got Lawrence coming off the bench playing well. It's a team that um, it has the look of a good NCAA tournament team. Not saying deep run. I'm just saying they can hold their own and maybe get that win. But I think one thing they have in their favor, that it isn't going to help them. They got to go do it. But some years the committee is looking at, okay, who are we going to leave out? There's all these teams that all deserve to get in. And then they start looking for warts. They start looking for things like you didn't win on the road, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. This year, I think it's the opposite. I think the committee is going to be looking for teams to put in. There aren't a
Mhm.
lot of great teams, and Nebraska stacks up well against all these teams that are on the bubble. And I think they might get a little bit of leeway because there's nobody to put in. There's just St. John's, Seton Hall. I mean, Cincinnati. I mean, it's just you look at a lot of these leagues, and it's just the middle of the pack is the bubble is not good. So yeah, I think Nebraska's it's a good year to be on the bubble because they're trying to find teams to add, not subtract necessarily. So, um, but I think I still feel better if they got that W on the road.
It's like when you're taking a college class and everyone bombs the exam and you're being graded on a curve. It's a beautiful thing. Maybe they picked the right year for something like that.
We'll see.
Let's close it with just a little bit of college baseball. And Tom, I know I'm preaching to the choir here when I'm saying I loved driving down to Dallas for that trip last weekend. And it was just a reminder of like how fun a lot of those Big 12 trips were when you could pop down to Norman or Austin or wherever. So it was fun just going down there, and it felt like sort of a mini College World Series at this Shriners College Showdown. You had future Big Ten team Oregon was there, and you had Tennessee was there, Texas Tech was there, Oklahoma, which was in the CWS finals a couple years ago, and I can tell you what I thought about the weekend. I'm curious how much kept track of anything or just impressions that you had. Nebraska went 1-2, but I thought played pretty well throughout the weekend.
Yeah, not really. But isn't it cool that when you go south, college baseball matters, and
Mm,
it's February, but these games matter. Um, you never feel like that in the Big Ten. I mean, so I don't. You travel more than I do on that, but don't feel like college baseball is really a part of the fabric of the sports scene in the Big Ten.
yeah.
You do when you go south. So no, I just again, I don't have any great expectations for this team, or I just want to see them, get win their share and not get swept on some of these things. And I thought they came out the pitching in the first game was really good. I thought that was a good sign, and they seemed to make a lot of plays in the first game. I mean, they didn't hold on, but the Oklahoma game came to kind of go back and forth, but they answered. They got the lead, didn't hold it, but I'm 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 optimistic for them. I think it's going to be fun. But it's too early to get excited. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to see more. But I just like to see a team that is going to uh, win more series in the Big Ten than they lose, and have a good chance to get out of the bullpen and get some of these games closed and play a little better defense. We talked about this last week with Sam. You did. I like the identity of Nebraska baseball: pitching, defense, and scrapping. I think that's a Will Bolt is better as a scrapper than some 3-run home run guy. I mean, I think that's his style. That was Van Horn's style, and I think he's a better fit. So I think that should be the way every year. When I think back to some of Will's teammates, John Cole and some of these guys, just hell on wheels on the base paths and would go head first in the third and a lot of hustle on defense and just sharp double plays and maybe a bunt, maybe fielder's choice, just guy constant motion on the base pass, and just the opponent never got a break. It never got to catch their breath because Nebraska was always coming, even when they were up 8, they're still coming. So I like that identity for this program. I don't think they need to be. They got into obviously when you got Max Anderson and Bryce. You're going to have home runs, but I like this identity better.
Yeah, I mean, I think in May, if Nebraska's on the bubble as an at-large team, you're going to look back and wish you had those Texas Tech and Oklahoma wins for sure. I think both of those teams are solid regional teams as they usually are. So like big picture, these aren't wins that are or these aren't losses that are going to hurt you the way that a midweek loss would hurt you, but you do feel like you missed an opportunity to show what you can do, especially in a schedule, in a Big Ten schedule where you just don't have a lot of opportunities against teams like that. So I think that's kind of the gut punch, even though you've got 50 plus games moving forward. Now, you just look under the hood a little bit. I think you mentioned the pitching, Tom. Like, what I like to look at is the strikeout to walk ratio. And a year ago, through 3 games, they struck out about as many guys as they walked or hit through that little stretch. This year, it was 28 to 11, 28 strikeouts to 11 free passes. Like that's going to play. That's top 30 nationally, generally speaking, if that plays out over a year, like that, you can handle that. So I think you move forward with that as you figure out your bullpen roles. And then offensively, you hit 188 with runners in scoring position. That's going to come up. That just will. And they had some liners at some fielders. And yeah, it's what ifs, but like one of those gets through and they probably go 2-1. Like that was the margin for them on opening
Yeah,
weekend. And so
yeah.
then you go to
I'll catch him. I'll cut him a little bit of slack there. They're who they're playing, and those
yeah.
guys are good. But I just think it's like this weekend against Grand Canyon. I mean, he's go win. I mean, I think it's important to establish an identity now of confidence. And I feel like last year, especially some of the midweek games, they're kind of on their heels in the middle of the week. Oh, UNO, North Dakota State or whatever. They feel like, are we going to win? We don't know. Oh, we can't lose these games. Just feel like the whole they didn't have a lot of momentum or a lot of confidence. I feel like sometimes you step on the field midweek. Okay, we're going to win this game. We know how to win. We're going to take care of it. And I don't feel like they had that vibe at all. I think you can establish that now.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, like the Grand Canyon is like the ideal RPI sort of opponent. Like it's not, it's a team that has made the tournament 2 of the last 3 years. It's going to have a good record. Like that's the key when you're scheduling some of these teams is you
Mhm.
want to play quality, especially when it comes to record, but maybe you don't want to overdo it to where you don't win enough of those games. So really big opportunity. You do that on the road, and it even adds more value to what you're trying to do. So we'll see. Second weekend, if they can figure out a few more things. I don't know.
I still,
Anything you're watching for this?
I still had to San Plan, Missouri. That's an SEC RPI right down the road, 5-hour bus ride. Old Big 8 rival. I'd like to see that. And maybe they could do that in Kansas City. College Baseball Hall of Fame is now in Overland Park. although Park Kansas is not the home of college baseball, apparently. Nobody will ever. I don't know who's who wants to do that down there, but maybe there's a way to play a college baseball Hall of Fame game or something. But um, I think I'm just waiting for spring. It feels like it's coming. But it'll always be good to see you at Haymarket Park. Always good to go out. I love that little press box and some kind of goodies you guys have on the back shelf there. There's usually some kind of licorice or some more candy bars or something. I always live for that stuff. So, um, but it's it's just sort of a rite of spring, Nebraska baseball. It's what we love, and I love this sort of renewal. Okay, well, it's a new season, a new identity. Maybe let's go give it let's go swing away. So
Well, we're inching closer to March. Spring practices for football will happen then. Nebraska basketball and the big dance may happen then. Nebraska baseball at home will happen then. We'll be there for all of it. Uh, so for Tom, I'm Evan. Thanks for listening to the Pick Six podcast. Sam will be back next week. I will be out on vacation for a week, so you two can solve all the world's problems next week. Thanks for listening, Husker fans.